And you can't be scared about taking a little bit different point of view and path in life, right? And because if you don't, then to your point, you're going to be lost in the middle, right? And there's a lot of generic, I think is a good way to kind of, I'm taking away from what you're saying is how do we get away from generic messaging that just gets lost? And how do we stand out? And there's a lot of work that's been done in this area in terms of what are the messages that matter the most and get the most engagement, myth busting, contrarian point of views. In fact, that was the word that Forbes used. You've got to have an appropriate level of a contrarian point of view that's going to make people think. It's like, I haven't quite thought about it that way, right? So that's the big part of the balancing act, right? Because that's how a brand message builds a brand, but it also starts to get people to take action, right? There's something unique, there's something different. And I think I'd love to talk a little bit about this kind of long-term, short-term balance, right? Brand building versus deep pipeline, short SQL, MQL kind of thing. How do you think about that? And here's, I'm going to preload this. There's a myth that needs to be busted that those are separate activities, separate budgets, right? Separate things that we've got to do. But we all know that there's a massive overlap in this. And so I just love to get your point of view on it.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting, point of view. So, for example, in our case, we have to develop and build a brand, the big picture of what we are, and then the B2B challenge is kind of how do we communicate that in a way that resonates with buyers. And then we also have in our business B2C marketing. So our business doesn't work if people don't think we're a solid and preferred employer. So there's the kind of employer branding angle, both for us as well as our customers. And I also think it's funny, kind of talking about B2C in our context, we call it B2C, even though applying for jobs happens online and the digital experience is online, just like e-commerce. But it's not e-commerce where more is more. So like in our case, we need to find the exact right amount of right applicants to the right positions, not too many, not too little, but the right ones that tick the boxes our customers set. So it's a balancing act for sure. And then depending on the job market, in our case, the balance switches. So right now we've got to support sales a lot more, but go a few years back and the job market was a lot more open in Finland and Nordics. We were desperate to get great job candidates. So from a team building perspective, we need to build the right processes and competences in our marketing team that can, match this balance when required. But I think it has a lot to do with the right metrics, really. And, wants to make sure that we align only what's important at any given time, talking to stakeholders internally and figuring out the current balance in business, and then we adjust and support. But I think what you touched on is also important, that there are a lot of programs and kind of a lot of marketing that can hit both. So you can do, you can build brand and still affect pipeline, I feel like. And that's the kind of goal that you need to find. But it's not easy for sure.